David Christie, political expert from the LaRouche movement, who joins us live here on RT International. Mr. Christie, Secretary of State John Kerry has also said just a couple of hours ago that Washington doesn't want another country unilaterally invading another country. What do you make of that statement?
Well, I'll say this. What Secretary of State Kerry said on Sunday is perhaps even more dangerous when he said, all options are on the table. Now, as concerning a confrontation between two thermonuclear powers, putting all options on the table is an absolute dangerous thing to say and could lead to a thermonuclear confrontation escalating out of control immediately. As far as what Secretary of State Kerry said, this is hypocrisy. The United States, under the responsibility to protect doctrine, the so-called humanitarian interventions of others within the Obama administration concerning the likes of Susan Rice and Samantha Power, they have invaded nations, absolutely violating the sovereignty of these nations, all for part of a larger geopolitical intent, which is to set up a confrontation between the Eurasian nations, particularly China and Russia and ultimately India. And this thing will go to world war unless Obama is removed from office, either through impeachment or forced resignation.
I just want to keep you still on these rhetoric that's been moving around between Washington. I mean, some of the words that they've been used, particularly Obama and Mr. Kerry, have been aggression and provocation, claiming that Russia is not fooling anybody. What do you make of those kind of comments, those kind of words that are being used right now?
Well, I would look at it as a kind of a wartime provocation here to try to, which is directed, of course, for larger geopolitical interests. And so they're hiding behind the fact that they themselves have done the regime change operations in other nations. Take the case of Libya, where Obama, removed the Gaddafi regime, doing so without the consent of Congress, in violation of the War Powers Act. He then has threatened to do the same thing in Syria, where this administration is actually backing the Al-Qaeda networks in Syria, in the same way that they backed the Nazi networks, the followers of Stepan Bandera in Ukraine. And this idea that they're now going after the Russian administration, when it was the Obama crowd, Victoria Nuland of the State Department.
Let me just quickly jump in here, because I want us to touch a little bit on this. These statements came after President Putin's statement saying that Russia is not going to go to war with Ukraine. Surprising to a lot of people who are saying, why are they still being so harsh with their rhetoric, even after the president of the state has said he's not going to war?
Well, that's what I'm trying to make the point of. The Obama administration, under the control of the London financial crowd and Wall Street, who are now in a collapse mode. They have their various puppets through the NATO system now threatening Russia with confrontation, ultimately directed towards China. But this is geopolitical. That's the only way that this can be described, is it's part of a larger geopolitical script to force Russia and China to back down and give in to the demands of the collapsing financial powers of London and Wall Street, which is they want to loot Ukraine. They want to loot Russia. They would like to loot China. This is what the European Union is doing to all nations within the European Union system. There is no sovereignty left in these nations within the European Union, and they're going for a neo-colonial policy of reconquering the world, to bring the world back to feudalism. That's what the crowd that runs Obama and the European Union, that's what their final aims are, is to reduce world population and bring the world under a kind of a neo-feudalism.
Dave Christie, the political expert from the LaRouche movement, giving us his point of view on the crisis that's going on in Ukraine. Thank you.